hold on a second. Are you stating that the UK political party is a true example of a moderate communist? Attempting to discredit and censor companies that disagree with them. I'm glad to see you again. In today's video, we'll talk about the Labour Party's hatred for Elon Musk and go over the most recent news from across the nation. However, before we get started, please remember to hit like and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our future content and growth. Just think, do you think a government of a major nation like the UK would actually plan to take down a social media platform owned by an American billionaire? That sounds unreal, but that's exactly what's happening under Keir Starmer and the British Labour Party. According to a leaked document, he and the Labour Party, working with the Centre for Countering Digital Hate, CCDH, an organization that is ostensibly nonpartisan but has strong ties to the political left. What makes this story even more disturbing is the Labour Party's deep involvement and the role that CCDH plays in censorship. Under the direction of left-wing political strategist Imran Ahmed, CCDH is actively involved in censorship and making life difficult for companies that hold opposing views to Elon Musk's. If you previously believed that CCDH was a standalone organization dedicated to fighting hate speech, you should reconsider. CCDH has close ties to the Labour Party and both parties share the same objective: censorship and the suppression of dissenting voices. A network of advisors to the Labour Party is linked to Morgan McSweeney. Since Keir Starmer was a major player in his political career and a previous chief of staff, it is evident that CCDH is not only a digital hate watchdog but also a component of the UK's larger power structure. CCDH has received funding from prominent individuals, which raises concerns about whether we might be unwittingly aiding groups that oppose free speech. In particular, CCDH regularly meets with US Democratic Party members to discuss censorship tactics aimed at people like Elon Musk. Another shocking discovery is that CCDH had a clear plan to shut down Musk's Twitter account. This wasn't just rhetoric. Musk and CCDH actually pressured advertisers to reduce Twitter's revenue. This isn't the first time they've used such tactics. Previously, CCDH successfully ran campaigns against US media outlets like The Federalist and The Canary. The situation becomes more complex when we realize that CCDH is actively influencing regulatory bodies in the US and the EU to push for stricter censorship rules on social media platforms in addition to targeting opposing voices. Molly Hemingway, a journalist with The Federalist, has publicly expressed her frustration accusing CCDH, a foreign organization, of plotting with mainstream media to undermine publications simply because they don't share its political views. This story worries me because it shows not only censorship but also the covert relationships between politics and non-governmental organizations. In particular, when Musk and CCDH target social media platforms where free speech should be respected, it raises many concerns about the thin line that separates censorship from stifling dissenting voices, especially as technology increasingly takes over our social lives today. When I consider CCDH and how it's spreading its influence from Europe to the US, I can't help but wonder if this is just a coincidence or if Keir Starmer's Labour Party is actively trying to get involved in international censorship battles. More than 60 meetings on Capitol Hill advocating for stricter censorship policies is not something a neutral nonprofit would normally do. Even though they won't publicly acknowledge it, Keir Starmer and his allies are obviously using CCDH as a political tool. The more I see CCDH meddle in American issues, the more I worry about free speech. This is no longer simply a problem in the UK. It's alarming to consider that a British government led by Keir Starmer could have the ability to impose digital censorship globally. What's even more concerning is the ethical dilemma raised by the relationship between Morgan McSweeney, one of Starmer's most influential figures, and CCDH. McSweeney is the founder of CCDH, which is obviously not a coincidence or a simple professional relationship. Starmer is not only attempting to control public opinion domestically, he is also seeking to influence censorship policies in the US supported by the Democratic Party. Starmer's Labour Party is stifling dissenting voices by utilizing CCDH to further its censorship goal. It's difficult not to think that Starmer is taking use of this foundation to evade public scrutiny. It appears more and more that his goal is to use censorship campaigns to consolidate power rather than the interests of the general public. Examine how Starmer and CCDH have increased their presence outside of the UK by focusing on the US, where CCDH has participated in campaigns in support of Tim Walz and Kamala Harris. This goes beyond simple political cooperation. Rather, it resembles a conspiracy by left-wing parties in both nations to dominate information globally. We are left with the urgent question of where freedom of speech is heading when non-profit organizations in the US and the UK are abusing their position of authority. It's hard to believe that Starmer would give up such a powerful tool, even though he fully understands how beneficial CCDH is to his political agenda. This only confirms my belief that Keir Starmer and the Labour Party have overreached in their attempt to control free speech under the guise of being an anti-hate organization. What irritates me is that CCDH is not just advocating for censorship, they are directly interfering with US and EU laws. If found to be excessively influencing policy, the group could potentially lose its tax-exempt status. Starmer hasn't only wasted a fantastic chance. After 14 chaotic years under the Conservative Party, he has worsened matters by pushing censorship policies and suppressing dissenting voices. This was his chance to be a hero to correct the massive errors left behind by the Conservatives, yet instead of seizing this opportunity he has only made things worse. The future of this battle remains unclear, but one thing is certain: it will continue, and its effects will not be confined to the UK but will ripple across the globe. We are witnessing the gradual weakening of the UK, especially when considering the absence of key countries at this year's Commonwealth Summit. A thought-provoking question arises: to what extent has the UK's power diminished when we look at the absence of crucial nations at this summit? This is not merely skepticism but truly a wake-up call. The absence of influential leaders like Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is a clear indication of the UK's declining influence. Instead, they opted to attend the BRICS summit dominated by emerging powers like Russia and China over the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting CHOGM in Samoa. This signals not only a decline in the UK's soft power but also a shift in priorities among developing nations. I can't help but believe that the Commonwealth is eroding, as evidenced by Barbados' 2021 official Republican transition and Jamaica's intention to do the same. Raise the important question of whether the Commonwealth, led by the UK, is still a viable partnership. The answer, at least for the time being, appears bleak. The UK's former dominance as the hub of a vast colonial network is increasingly being challenged by alliances like BRICS and rising powers. That concludes today's video. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and if you thought this analysis was interesting, please remember to hit the bell icon to subscribe to the channel and like it so you don't miss any updates. I appreciate your help.